Today we'll be delving into the world of fines and appeals here in the UK. So if you've recently received a fine and want to know what your options are, you've come to the right place. First up, let's talk about council fines. These are fines issued by local authorities to individuals who reside within the council's area or those who've driven within their jurisdiction. The most common type of council fine is known as a penalty charge notice or PCN. These are usually given to motorists for bus lane or parking contraventions on public land. Additionally, you may have received council fines for littering. A council penalty charge notice is an official fine, which means there is a strict process to follow. Ignore a council penalty charge notice, then after 28 days the council will send out a formal notice called a charge certificate. This notice won't just inform you of the missed payment deadline, it will also increase your fine by 50%. You'll only get 14 days to pay this or a court order will be issued, which could then result in the use of bailiffs. In short, if it's a penalty charge from the council, then either pay up or appeal promptly. Never ignore it. So how do you actually appeal a council PCN? Well, someone from the local authority will either have given you the PCN in person by perhaps leaving it on your car, or you'll have received a letter about it in the post. How you receive the PCN will determine how you should respond. If you received it in person or found it placed on your car, then you need to make an informal appeal to the council first. Normally it involves writing a letter that determines why you think the PCN was wrongly issued. If that informal appeal is rejected, you can escalate your appeal to a formal appeal, or representation as they're sometimes called. You may want to gather even more evidence for a formal appeal. If you received your PCN as a letter through the door, however, then you won't be able to write an informal appeal and you'll have to skip straight to the formal appeal process. To actually make your appeal, you'll need the PCN number from your ticket. With this, you should be able to access the appeals section of the relevant council's website and submit your information on there. Moving on, let's now examine police fines. Police fines encompass any fines issued by police officers or police forces. While you can receive a penalty fine from the police for inappropriate behaviour in public, the most common police fines are called fixed penalty notices. First introduced in the 1950s, fixed penalty notices were initially a way to fine people for parking contraventions. However, over the decades, they've been served for a growing number of motoring offences and even fly tipping, antisocial behaviour and littering. These days, one of the most common reasons for receiving a fixed penalty notice or FPN is for speeding offences. There isn't a formal process to appeal a fixed penalty notice. If you don't admit guilt, the case will have to be decided in court. You might be able to convince a judge that you shouldn't have been served with a fixed penalty notice, but this is rare. If you agree that you're guilty but fail to pay within 28-day deadline, the court will increase your fine by 50% of its value. If you don't respond to the newly increased fine, the courts can issue an arrest warrant against you, and you'll then face charges. Now let's shift our focus to private parking fines. It's important to note that these fines are referred to as parking charge notices or PCNs, but they should not be confused with penalty charge notices that are issued by local councils that we discussed earlier. They are two distinct types of fines, and it's crucial to understand the differences. In reality, unlike a council penalty charge notice, you aren't legally obliged to pay a private land car park fine, unless you're told to do so by a court. However, it might be well worth considering prompt payment to avoid further stress, worry and any potential legal action. Plus, many companies offer a decent reduction in your fine for early payment. If you do ignore a private parking ticket, it's likely that the company will send payment reminders, add late charges or even threaten legal action. But in reality, there's nothing private companies can do to collect money unless they take you to court. But that doesn't mean you should just ignore private parking fines. It's fairly likely that the company who issued the ticket will be willing to involve the courts. So you can't just ignore them. If they do take court action, a judge could make it your legal responsibility to pay, and the fine may become greater due to court costs. To appeal a private parking charge notice, you should follow the instructions on your ticket. Usually you'll be accessing the parking company's website and initially appealing directly to the parking company on there. If your initial appeal to the company is rejected, then you have 21 days to make a second appeal to either Poplar or the IPC, depending upon which the parking company is linked to. However, if the company is not registered with any accredited trade association, then you need to proceed with caution. These companies cannot contact the DVLA for your address, so they can only send you a fine by collecting your address by other means, which may not be legal. Do your research, and if in doubt, you can check if a company is an ATA member by calling the British Parking Association. Beware though, the call isn't free. Remember, it's crucial to understand the specific types of fine you received and the appropriate steps to take when dealing with it. If you're wanting to challenge a fine or a penalty, then a popular option is to consult with a solicitor for help. There's many online solicitors that can work out cheaper and easier than meeting in person. JustAnswer, for example, only costs £5 for a trial. One of my colleagues saved over £270 on a parking ticket by using their service. I've linked that offer in the description. If you use that, you'll also be supporting Money Nerd. So thank you.